Thank you for joining us, Mr. Samuel Wanza joins us now, CFO at TNOG Oil and Gas.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. Good morning. Incredible, $1.1 billion.
Yes.
Incredible investment there. Why did Hess Holding embark on this investment?
Yeah, well, thanks, Ladi. I think the reason why we are doing this investment keys into our ethos as an organization.
Yeah.
We recognize that in Africa, there is a huge energy gap. And it's very important that energy plays a central role in the development and growth of any economy. Mm-hmm. And so for many years now, Hess Holdings, we've been looking at what can we do to fill this gap. 8 years ago, we decided to get our hands on some upstream assets where there is significant oil and gas reserves, so that we can use that to drive an integrated energy strategy.
Okay.
And you can see that some of that strategy played out in some of the investments we've done in power. And so this investment in particular is just another step to take us forward along those lines.
And now, what do you think you can do differently? I mean, from what the multinationals
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things.
What makes it different?
Yeah, so first of all, I think the multinationals have done a great job. I mean, they have done the much that they can do as it relates to onshore Nigeria. But I think that we as indigenous organizations can do a lot more. Because we come from these areas, we are more closely affiliated to the communities. We are Nigerians ourselves. Our bread and butter is in this country, and the growth of this economy is linked to the kind of things that we do. So there are a number of things we are looking to do differently, or I would say to enhance on what has already been done. So first of all is we intend to build on the existing relationships that the IOCs have developed in the local communities. Secondly is we intend to enhance a lot of the community development trusts with additional governance and monitoring systems. And then more importantly is we have heavily focused on capacity building. If you've ever followed Hess Holdings and our foundation, the Tony Elumelu Foundation, you will know that one of the core things we focus on is entrepreneurship and capacity building. Now, what we've done in that space on an African scale, we intend to bring, to a local scale, specifically in the Niger Delta and on the communities where we'll be playing. So that's on the community side. On the production side, these assets have an installed capacity of about 240 barrels per day, and they're producing just about 27,000. Has 2P reserves about 1.1 billion barrels. So we intend to focus on growth plans that will bring economic activity and development to the area, and also improve on the living of the people of the area and boost both the local and the national economy. So those are some of the things that we intend to do differently.
Okay, so this acquisition, is it consistent with your broad strategic intent? And if so, how does it fit with your other businesses?
Oh, great question. So first of all, it's very, very consistent. If you follow, when we began to look at the energy gap or the void in the country, we decided, first of all, to go into power. We made a commitment under the former President Obama's Power Africa initiative to invest $2 billion in energy transformation across the continent. We started that journey in 2013 when we acquired through Transcorp the Ughelli power plant. We've just recently, a couple of months ago, announced the acquisition of 2 additional power plants in AFAM. But one of the things you notice when you look at the power sector in Nigeria is that for it to develop fully, you need to have control of the feedstock. And you need to have ability to be able to direct that feedstock to feed that power generation. So the consistency we see is, one, it feeds into our power strategy as a group, but it also feeds into the larger strategy of building an integrated energy business across the continent, starting with Nigeria, but we have ambitions to go across the continent.
Now that brings to the broad light what, some Nigerians feel about this move. Yes, you talked about the fact that Hess Holdings is into power, of course, now oil and gas, hotel, and catering. Now, it suggests for some people in some quarters that you guys are becoming a slowly growing, monopoly. So how do you allay the fears of some Nigerians who perhaps are thinking along the side?
Yeah, so I think the idea of thinking of it as a monopoly is probably not accurate. If you look at each of the sectors that we play in, there are multiple players in those sectors. And there are multiple businesses in those sectors that are also doing equally well. We as a group have a growth ambition, and that growth ambition is centered around the development of Africa as a continent. And if you look at parallel examples in different parts of the world, like in South Korea, in Singapore, even in the Middle East, you find that when you empower local investors to invest in areas of the economy that will drive growth, you will see a benefit for all. So I don't think there is a monopoly concern, certainly not at this stage. And I think that what we are trying to do is actually for the benefit of every Nigerian.
Okay. Well, looking at the insecurity concerns, the multinationals had to deal with it. How are you going to deal with these issues?
Yeah.
So, first of all, as a group, we've always had business. We have businesses in multiple sectors, like you mentioned. We're in financial services, we're in oil and gas, we're in power, we're in hospitality, we're in healthcare. So we've always been doing business, and the business we do is here in Nigeria, nested within the local communities, the environment, and even in the areas where we've historically had security concerns. I think one of the reasons why you find this disconnect and you have this security situation that affects businesses is probably because many businesses need to recognize that there has to be a shared destiny between your business and the communities in which you operate. And this is a fundamental principle that drives the way we invest. I mean, I used to be the chief investment officer for Households. I cannot get an investment through with my investment committee if I cannot demonstrate how that investment will create developmental impact in the society in which we invest. And so that's why you see we've made a lot of commitment towards capacity building through our foundation, the Tony Elumelu Foundation, towards driving entrepreneurship, because we see that when you empower people to be able to generate a means of living by themselves, you are able to deal with the issue of poverty, which we believe is inextricably linked with the issue of insecurity in the country today.
So are you also directing that to the host community?
Absolutely. We are designing, or we have designed, as part of this process, a customized, targeted approach towards capacity development and entrepreneurship, just like we do in the foundation for the communities. Already, the community, actually in this Niger Delta area, our foundation has already supported close to 900 individuals in this community, everything from businesses in agriculture, in manufacturing, in media, in fashion, everything you can imagine. So we are going to do something that is now designed around the areas where we have these activities to boost the local economy and to create more wealth for all.
Okay, looking at this, the OML 17, can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, it's an interesting asset. So OML 17 covers about 1,300 square kilometers. Like you rightly mentioned, it has about 2P reserves of about 1.1 billion barrels of oil equivalent. That's as large as the total reserves in some countries. Okay. It also has exploration potential of additional 1 billion barrels. It has gas resources of about 2.2 TCF. So you're talking about huge resources.
So it's not just about the 27,000 barrels.
It's not about the 27,000 barrels. Like I said, this asset has installed capacity to do up to 240,000 barrels. And 27,000 barrels is because, much investment hasn't really gone into onshore Nigeria in the last couple of years by the IOCs. But this asset historically has actually done as high as 100,000 barrels. So there is huge opportunity for growth, and that's what we are going for.
So it's investment in potential.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Wanze, you just have to hold your thoughts there, because one would wonder, looking at this time of high volatility in the global oil market, why this investment, and how much hedges you have put in place, against it. But we'll talk about that in a moment. All right, Mr. Samuel Wanze is still with us, and we'll be back in a moment. We're still talking about the OML 17 acquisition by Hers Holdings, and Samuel Wanze, Chief Financial Officer, TNOG Oil and Gas Limited, is still here with us. Thank you very much for sticking on there. Yes, we're talking about the time of high oil price volatility. So what are the hedges you have put in place as a mitigation to the downside risks?
Yeah, so first of all is to say that, of course, the deal is closing now, but the deal negotiations actually happened before now. And there's no better time for us to buy, than to buy when you have, a downturn in prices, just from an investment point of view. But this transaction is largely financed by top international, regional, local banks, and some of the world's largest asset management firms. And as you can imagine, the risk management element of the deal is extremely, extremely important, not only for them, but also for us even as investors. And so we have implemented hedges in place to manage the downside risk as it relates to oil price volatility, and also to ensure that the volumes that we produce, even if you manage it at the levels that we have, keeps us in a situation where we're able to meet our obligations as an investment group and also generate return for all our investors.
So the NNPC still holds 55%
yes.
in this OML 17. How does the government come in to this transaction?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, 55% is owned by NNPC. NNPC, after engaging with us, and we had to go and make presentations to them as to what we intend to do with the asset, did appoint us as the operator, the sole operator for the asset. So we are managing this asset, and our partner is NNPC. NNPC provides a lot of input, governance, and direction as it relates to how we manage the assets. There is an operating agreement that guides, the kind of things we can or cannot do. And also there's a governance model that makes sure that they have input into whatever it is we are carrying out for the benefit of the joint venture. There is huge amounts of benefits for the government in the deal. Of course, apart from the employment that we'll be able to generate, from the growth and the economic activity, we are bringing back a lot of indigenous, Nigerian professionals that have been trained by the IOCs that will run this business, and they will develop and build capacity of the younger ones. But there is also significant income that the government will be able to generate as we grow the production, both in terms of royalties, taxes, and levies. Our estimates, for example, are that over the life of the license, the government should earn about 6.5 times what they currently earn on this asset in terms of royalties, taxes, and levies. So there's huge amounts of benefits for all stakeholders.
So how do you hope to benefit from the PIB 2020?
Yeah, so the PIB is an interesting one. We are watching closely that space. We are hoping and expecting that, we will see it pass through. There are a number of things within the PIB that are beneficial to us as indigenous players. It also opens the door for us to invest more in certain areas in the oil and gas space, particularly in gas, which is an area that we will be looking at more closely. But there's quite a lot that we see that we can do if the PIB does go through. Any concerns? No particular concerns at this time. I think we, as an investment company, we've studied the PIB, we've deliberated on it internally, and I think I think it's a pretty good piece of legislation that we can work through it.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Samuel Wanze, Chief Financial Officer, TNOG Oil and Gas Limited. We wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.